Hello, welcome back. First of all, I want to say sorry for not posting Sunday's video yet. We decided to record a vlog and it's taking much longer and much more work than we anticipated. So, yeah, the video is still coming, but we're talking about something different today, as you could guess by the title. We were coming back from my doctor's appointment today and thinking about what to record for YouTube. And, it seemed a little weird not to share my process of getting my diagnosis here because it's something that is happening right now and it's something that affects my life on a daily basis. And I admit that I was very skeptical on talking about this because, yeah, it's an ongoing issue. It's a fresh wound and it's really sensitive. But I also think that it's a very, important opportunity to talk about something that there is not a lot being talked about, not only about having a late diagnosis as a woman in autism. I'll get more into why that's a thing later, but also of the whole experience of living abroad being neurotypical. So to get started, I guess I'm going to tell a little about how I got my diagnosis. Pretty much every disease in the world is classified in a list called the ICD-10, which is the International Code for Diseases. And on the section 5, it's a list of all the mental health diseases and disorders. And pretty much for you to be validated with the diagnosis, you need to match a set of symptoms that are listed per diagnosis. In my case, through anamnesis, which is an analysis that the psychiatrist makes on your behavior and on the stories that you tell and on your progress. So through the circumstantial things and the things that you're reporting to the professional, they are able to notice that you have the criteria to meet a diagnosis. In the beginning of my healthcare journey, let's say, it was in 2013. I started getting really depressed, and after doing therapy, my therapist told me to go to a psychiatrist, and my first diagnosis was actually depression. As I switched doctors and medication and my lab started passing by, I actually got two additional diagnoses at the time, which was ADHD and bipolar disorder. This was all done by appointments with my psychiatrist and, just discussing my complaints and how I was feeling and everything. But at the time, in 2018, I saw myself in a situation that I was completely over-medicated and I was just a zombie. I was taking really high dosages of a lot of medication that I, felt no effect for. And then I made a very, very stupid decision. I stopped taking all my medications altogether. And then, when everything fell apart, eventually, because I was doing that without a lot of assistance from the healthcare professionals, I found a new therapist, and after a while we decided that it was a good idea for me to start talking to my psychiatrist again, to a psychiatrist again, to start maybe taking medication. And that's how I met the doctor that got my autism diagnosis in 2019. So in the beginning, we were just treating directly the symptoms that I was having, which at the time was really, really severe depression with, suicidal thoughts. After months, as I was getting better, the doctor started analyzing some other stuff in me. And after around 6 months, I would say, he started asking me some questions about my childhood and other stuff. And then the autism diagnosis came. Pretty much, I'm not really sure about in Belgium or other countries, but in Brazil, the diagnosis for mental diseases or disorders can be either done by an assessment. So you go to a neuropsychologist and it's like a test that you have to take. Or it can also be done through anamnesis, which was my case. So based on the conversations and dialogues with my doctor, he noticed the symptoms and then he was able to fill that. Based on that list, I had enough symptoms to be considered autistic. Which is, by the way, a spectrum. This was, by the way, something that I remember asking my doctor because it came kind of like a shock. Ever since I was a kid, I had this stigma of what autistic people were like and looked like. When the doctor told me that, I admit that my first reaction was like, no, I'm not. Which is really crazy because with time, I just started to notice, do I really not feel like that, or am I just so used to masking and pretending and being forced to adapt to certain circumstances that it just goes unnoticed? And that was the case of me and of many other people who get the autism diagnosis at a later age in life. So yeah, it was a whole process for me to accept that. It was a process for my family too. And I remember when I was talking to my mom and my doctor about it, because she wanted to understand a little bit more. So we had an appointment all together. He was explaining a very specific difference about autism, like the diagnosis being on the spectrum and just autistic traits. So pretty much everyone, or almost everyone, has autistic traits, which are some of the things that are known as being symptoms of the autism spectrum disorder, such as low tolerance to high noises, or hypersensitivity to many stuff, hyper focusing on stuff. It can also be a diagnosis that is mixed with others, and in the end it just becomes it's difficult to separate one thing from the other. But pretty much it's considered a disability and a disorder in Brazil when the symptoms are so present that they start affecting your life. And in my case, they do affect a lot of stuff. So yeah, after the time that, the shock of the information passed, having the diagnosis actually changed my life for the better in many, many, many ways. It's funny, there is in Portuguese a video on this channel in which I'm talking to a friend about the educational system in Brazil. And in that video, I talk about the fact that when I was studying at the Technological Federal University of Paraná, I had a burnout problem. I was put on medical leave for 1 month, and the university made me give up my whole semester because I failed. I was absent in too many classes, and my health issue was not contagious. So yeah, after the diagnosis, something changed. I was sitting in a different university that also gave me access to other stuff. But through that, I was able to get it's not special care, but it's mainly a place that I could go where I would talk to a psychologist or to a professional. And they would make an arrangement, like sending a letter to your teachers. So there were some minor changes that could be adapted in the classroom and in the way that I had to do stuff, so the university life wouldn't be so challenging for me. So, for example, I really panic when I'm taking tests. I know stuff, I study a lot, but when it comes to the time that I'm tested, I just panic and I cannot do it. So in this university, I had the chance to if that happens, can I take the test on a private class? Or if the test is just I start freaking out in the middle of nowhere, I can do some other type of work to prove that I've studied the semester. The advantage point that I had was just an adaptation of the environment that I was into my needs. So design, I have a bachelor in design, is a course in which people listen to music, they sing, they talk loud in the classroom. And that's oversensitivity nightmare. By the way, if you want to know a little more about this fields, there is a video that I'm going to leave linked here, which was the work that I did for a contest of Apple, talking about the sides effects of being neurodivergent people in these types of environments. And it's like a simulation. So yeah, I'm going to link that somewhere here. But well, anyway, yeah, I had all of these adaptations, but that pretty much ended the moment that I left university. When I went back to the job market, I was always really open with the people who were employing me about my diagnosis since day one, or even since the interviews, because, always letting them know that I need some space. Sometimes, most of the time, I need to work from home. It's really tough for me to commute to an office, especially if it's a open concept with everyone sharing a table and stuff like that. And this gets me to the point of why I'm getting my diagnosis validated here in Belgium. When I arrived here, it took me quite a while to think about getting everything, sorted. As I mentioned in the other video here, you don't really need a psychiatrist to prescribe the medication for you. But, well, one thing that I was proven is that after 1 year working here, I learned that I cannot keep doing this to myself. Even in Brazil, when I was applying for jobs, there was always the option of applying as a handicapped person. I was always thinking oh yeah, I don't need that. I've always applied to jobs as, a neurotypical person, and it has always worked out. But I noticed that I keep doing this to myself. I keep putting myself in stressful situations, and it gets to a point that I just I lose it. It's overwhelming. I cannot do my work anymore. I cannot do my work without, crying. It's panicking for me to leave the apartment and go to work. And obviously, the people who are hiring me are not really happy when that happens. So it gets to a point that it feels like no matter how well I can do a job, it's always going the same way. I'm going to eventually burn out, get sick. The employers are going to be disappointed at me, and the position is going to be given to someone else who, doesn't get sick as often. So, yeah, after taking a look into my rights here, I learned that through a validation of my diagnosis as a handicapped person in Belgium, I can have access to job opportunities that are a little more matched to the needs that I have. And honestly, it's really hard to talk about this because it's not that there is something wrong with needing it. It's just hard to tell myself that after, oh shit, I'm gonna cry. After 10 years being in the market and, being able to finish my education, which is just something that is like really low odds for autistic people, and being able to achieve a lot of the professional dreams that I had, including like moving abroad and finding a job in my field within not a long time. And yeah, it just gets to a point that this happens. And then you just know that you have to do something about it. So pretty much in Belgium, there are two ways that you can have your diagnosis validated, and it's pretty much on a federal level or on a regional level. So since I am in Brussels, I could either get it through FAR, and for that, I need to have a legal translation of my diagnosis, plus the letter of a doctor. From here, it can be a GP that attests that everything that is being said there is valid. It's ideally it can be a psychiatrist, but yeah, as you know, I still don't have a psychiatrist here. And for the federal level, it is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to put the information here in the screen. It was a website that I entered, and I needed to fill in a form online to describe how handicapped I am. There were different sections in the test, and they were stuff about my day-to-day life. So not only about work, but like at home, how are you capable of doing your home tasks? Does your laundry ever pile up? Do your dishes ever pile up and stuff like that? So yeah, it took like an hour to fill that in. A lot of tears and a lot of pain. You submit this form to them, and it can take up to 4 months for them to have an answer. So actually the appointment that I had today is that I got their letter back, and I had to go to my doctor to ask her to, fill in the information and everything. And that gets me to, I guess, the toughest point, which is like getting an autism diagnosis is not a simple process. And the fact that now I have to do it all again, and that I have to prove people that I'm autistic by like shouting out and, really explicitly talking about the traits that I've been trying to mask for this entire time. But yeah, I guess it's a part of the process. I'm very lucky that, my doctor is a really sweet person. She listens to me a lot. She has been with me since September or October last year. She has been through all my phases, but still some stuff happens, such as like, oh, but are you sure that this is your diagnosis? Honestly, in situations like that, I don't even know what to tell the person. In my case, the symptoms that I have are really related to the circumstances and the environment in which I'm living. And yeah, after everything that happened with the job and the burnout, again, I'm in a really delicate time. It's hard to go through all of that because it's just thinking about all the things that I was able to do on my own before, and now it's kind of tricky, and in what position that puts me as a person that is living abroad, far away from my family. Because, when I was in Brazil, when anything happened, it was like, hi, Mom. And she was 5 minutes away. And now she's like usually sleeping by the time that this happens. And it's not like I would ever call my parents to to keep on, asking them, like, help me when they're so far and there's nothing they can do. So, yeah, it's a pretty tricky position to be in, actually. So, yeah, guys, I'm very sorry that this video was not the most uplifting. But I promise this is not the vibe all the time. And a really cool vlog about the undergrounds of Belgium is coming up. So subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that, and the news about when and if I'll get my diagnosis. And that's it. I'll see you in the next video. Brussels. Bye.